Hello, today we're down in central Glasgow. We're just a short walk away from the drug consumption room, which is just over behind the Morrisons, which is just across through these bushes. But we're about to show you something which gives you an insight into the challenges that the authorities face when trying to persuade people to use those facilities, because literally just a couple of minutes walk away, we're about to have a look at something quite horrific. You can see here, just as we come into the bushes, there's all sorts of drug paraphernalia lying around. There's needles, there's little spoons, there's packets that they're supposed to dispose of the materials in, which they've clearly not been using. There's bottles of booze everywhere. Let's take a closer look inside. Bottle of vodka here. And we're being very careful with our feet because there's so many needles, there's literally hundreds of needles. And clearly this has been set up for the purposes of taking drugs in this unruly place. There's again materials absolutely everywhere. It's a horror show. It's like a nightmare scenario, but it's a reality. And then just over here, possibly the most disturbing thing that I've ever seen in the years we've been covering this issue. We've got this sapling or tree, and right the way up, someone's decided to put all these needles in there like some sort of horrific symbol of a drug den. And it's literally minutes from the drug consumption room where they're supposed to take these drugs safely. And you got in touch with the Scottish Sun to invite us to come down here today. Can you just explain why?
Well, it was to show the ridiculous situation that loads of people are living in here in Glasgow. We've got the safe consumption room literally like minutes away from where this is. And as you've seen yourself, the horrific situation that drug addicts have been forced into themselves, where they're taking stuff that they're getting from the safe consumption room and coming here to then take it. It's shocking that this is happening in the streets of Glasgow.
And have you been in and had a look as well?
Absolutely, and I actually have a previous role in community addiction, so it's heartbreaking to see that. And I think it's more than just the drug paraphernalia there. You know, if you've been in and seen it, there's women's underwear lying about, there's condoms, so that gives you an insight as to other things that's going on there, possible prostitution and things. And to think that people are forced into these rat-infested conditions to do such a thing in 2025 in Glasgow, it's just mind-boggling completely.
And what does it say about the location of it, the fact that it's so close to the consumption room? Clearly people are giving that a sidestep and coming here.
Well, it says what our biggest fear was. Both Audrey and me were on the council when this plan was coming for the safe consumption room. We raised concerns that this was what was going to happen. We said that the idea that somebody's going to go in safely to take an injection might happen at the first instance, but given addicts and needles and everything else to then take away with them, of course this situation was going to happen. So we've been in public meetings down here where local residents have raised these concerns. Every time we talk about it, councillors from the SNP, from Labour, from other parties say we're scaremongering, we're spreading misinformation. We can see firsthand exactly what's going on in the streets of Glasgow. We warned that this was going to happen, we're seeing it happening, and every time we raise it the councillors just denying flatly that it's here. But you can see for yourself, this is actually what's going on in the streets of Glasgow, which is terrible for a time in 2025.
I think as well this is a perfect example of how you can not sit behind a desk and think, you know, right, you have to come down, you have to engage with the people that's using this space, you have to ask them, where are we failing, what are we doing wrong, how can we get this right for you, what would prevent you from taking this kind of action, because there is something missing. And I was actually on the IJB committee at the time, the plans for this, and I raised quite a few objections and was completely frowned upon for it, you know, completely frowned upon. But I did try and warn them, not just to be a smart aleck and say, oh, do you know, it's because I've been on the front line with addiction for many years, and you cannot beat the lived experience of it. And when you've worked very close with that, and Thomas has had his own experiences with it as well, and when you've worked close you get an understanding for these people, and I just personally feel that that is something that's seriously lacking within the council currently.
And just inside there's quite a disturbing, I mean the whole thing is disturbing, but in particular there seems to be this tree where they've been, can you just describe that to us, and what do you think that's almost like a symbol of a failed system here.
It's exactly the symbol of a failed entire system for the whole drug death crisis that's existed in Scotland. So what we've seen in there is a tree where people who have been injecting themselves have then put the needles inside the tree, and you can see the number of needles that are there. I was really taken aback when I went in and seen it myself. It is gobsmacking, and it shows the big fundamental issue we have in Scotland with the drugs crisis. We have record high drug deaths in Scotland. Politicians' solutions to that are to give people free stuff to take drugs rather than try and tackle the addiction issues. As Audrey said, I've got my own experience with this with my own family. I've seen firsthand that recovery can work. I've seen that rehab can work, and instead what we're doing is we're putting so much focus into trying to tackle harm reduction, trying to manage people's addictions rather than actually focusing on the big issue, which is trying to get people the support they need, the recovery services they need to try and get them off drugs, because what we're seeing in there is horrific.
And one other thing you might want to mention would be how important it is to make the link between this and the drug gangs, the people at the very top who are importing these drugs into Scotland and who are currently running amok across the country. It's important to make that link, isn't it?
Absolutely. In the meetings that we have attended, the local residents from this area report that all of a sudden there's a higher volume of 4x4 circulating the area and things, and that is because there was a rule in place that if you were caught within a close proximity to the safe consumption and in possession of drugs, then you would be arrested, because it would be assumed that you were going there to use the drugs when clearly that's not happening. And I think, just come back to the tree, the fact those needles are stuck in there the way they are, for me, that is a statement from the addicts themselves, saying this is what we are reduced to, this is as good as it gets for us, and that's not fair, because every single person that's placed a needle in that tree is somebody's son, somebody's daughter, and they deserve a chance, they deserve a right to recovery.
Yeah.